Hello and welcome to episode number 45 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim. And today, Dan, we're talking about not every game was made for you, or me, or you.
Are you sure about that, Jim?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. We are on episode number 45.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. We're 5 episodes away from 50.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy to me.
Did we ever look into when we started? I think it's been a year now.
It's been
in April.
It's been right around a year, yeah. I'm gonna have to pull that up. I'm gonna see if I can find the exact date. I'll have to do that after. But yeah, we're right around that year mark of when we started doing the podcast. And this is the first thing we started doing.
Yeah.
Remember starting at my kitchen table at the other place.
Yeah.
And now we're here. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's cool. Like it's cool. It's like reminiscing and looking back on like how far you've come, even in a very short amount of time is always it's a good thing. You don't want to live in the past, obviously, but it's always a good thing to look back and see where you started from. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But we're talking about episode 45 today.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget, if you could go ahead, give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review on the podcast platform that you're listening on. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're listening on, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube. Either way, if you could leave us a review, like the video, leave a comment, give us some type of interaction, that would be a huge help to us as we are continually looking to reach a wider audience with this content. It's kind of interesting I say that, and then we're talking about the topic that we're talking about.
Yes.
Of not every game is made for you. So this conversation we kind of started talking about it last week on last week's episode, which if you haven't yet, go check it out. We had a great conversation with the Lord of the Board, Sam Smith.
It was fun talking to him.
That was fun. I ain't had that much fun just talking to a guest in a long time. It is always funny when they can kind of slip up a little bit and just say some funny things, and then we all just laugh and have a good time. So that was fun. If your wife hasn't seen that yet, Sam, we're either shield her from it, or I'm gonna find her and just like, hey, did you know what your husband said? That was probably the funniest point in that episode.
Yeah, it was.
But anyway, so towards the end of that conversation, I had brought up the question because we were talking a lot about Villainous, and kind of what I had noticed was, I'd been playing this game for a while because it's really the game that got me more into this hobby, particularly. But if you've watched our content for any amount of time, or if you've known me personally, or even Jim, because Jim is very much a similar way, but in different, but he's still very similar in the standpoint of we're very strategic players, and we're even competitive. Like we're looking at every game from the strategic and the competitive side, like the aspect to it. Even in Commander, right? Even in a game that's more casual in nature, we're still trying to be more strategic and more competitive, right? But when we apply that to a game like Villainous, okay, it doesn't work out that way. It doesn't. And so like you can take that and it can lead to either more frustration, or you can learn from it, right? Learn something about yourself, and then also learn something about the game. So So before we even get into it, I just want to point out I had a really rough time with this outline. So what I like to do is before every episode, I'll type up an outline, which you normally you can see right in front of you, right, on the video. And so like I normally try to really point out the conversation, like point by point of kind of how I want the conversation to go. And this topic was just like, it felt so disjointed in my head. Like I had a very difficult time trying to make the conversation or even the points flow together. So I'm going to do the best I can here. So
we'll make it work.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. So in that conversation, right. But if you've watched our last Disney Villainous video, because like I even had made mention of it in the video, I'm like, oh, you just wait in that conversation. I'm like, just wait until you see this video. So our most recent Disney Villainous gameplay video, there was a lot of frustration. Now, in the video, like I laughed a lot of it off. And honestly, in the moment, I was frustrated, but I have really learned to just laugh everything off. Even if I'm not having a good time, I'll make my point and say, I don't like this, but then I'll just laugh it off. And that's really what happened. Like you'll really be able to see that in the video. Jim doesn't get as worked up as I do just because like he's just not that way. Like he's not wired that way.
Unless we're playing League of Legends, then it's a different story.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen him play League of Legends.
I hate that game so much, Dan.
So maybe League of Legends wasn't made for you, Jim.
Nope.
So really, and Jim will be able to attest to this, because at the end of that game, I finally came to the realization, I'm like,
F this game. That's what he told me after we cut the video.
I'm like, all right, we're not rolling, right? Nobody can catch this footage. Yeah. Here's what I really think now. But I don't think Villainous was made for the type of player that I am.
Yeah.
Normally, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just I think it's the way it is. So it's not a bad thing. It's not even necessarily a good thing. It's just it's a realization and a fact. Mm-hmm. And so once I realize that, now in the future, I can really approach that game, even if I'm sitting down with people who are more competitive and strategic in nature, that, you know what, this game isn't gonna be that way. Mm-hmm. And like if my expectation is is here, then if my expectation's here, then I'm not looking to get here. And when I'm not reaching here, then I'll be frustrated, right? Yeah. And we kind of talked about that in another episode where where it was like, know your play group, like you know your game too, mm-hmm. right? So it's really that realization of, okay, Dan, I don't think Disney Villainous was made for the type of player that you normally are. Mm-hmm. And so it got me to really think about that, and then also apply that into not just that particular game, but all games. Because like I've known this for a long time. Not all games are made for all people. Mm-hmm. They're not. Because I mean, if you think about it, right? There's so many different types of games, right? You look at a certain IP, like let's take Lord of the Rings, for instance. Like how many different Lord of the Rings games are there? I don't expect you to answer it. 6. Yeah. Have like
42. That's all. I mean,
here. You've played Lord of the Rings games.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to guess, mm-hmm. how many Lord of the Rings games have you played?
Oh man.
I mean, give me a very rough estimate.
That I've played?
Yes, that you've played.
Okay. I think I've played around 7, 8, 9 different Lord of the Rings games.
Okay. Now, of those 7, 8, or 9, how many have you enjoyed?
I would say 3 off the top of my head I really like.
Okay. Now, do you know Thanks, Harley.
We're gonna leave that in.
Yeah, we are. Do you know if you started to play those games because they're Lord of the Rings games, or like for another reason?
I would say I first checked them out because they were Lord of the Rings games. Yeah.
So that's a really strong point for licensing for really big IPs.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're a big IP, the designers and marketers know you're going to pick up the game because of the IP more than anything. Like, so the intellectual property of what it is a huge selling point.
Matters
to a lot. Well, to any game, really.
Yeah.
Really to any game. But that's beside the point, right? So, and honestly, like if we really start to dive into the IP question, right? Like designers and marketers use that IP more than they use the kind of game it is. When we're talking about licensing, we're talking about licensed games, it's like somebody's not selling you a game because they think you're going to enjoy it. They're selling a game because they want you to buy it because they had to buy the license. So it's a different type thing, right? All right. So you enjoy like 3 to 4 of them, right? Now the ones that you didn't like, you didn't enjoy, it had nothing to do with the IP, correct?
No.
Right.
No.
It had everything to do with the type of game it was and your preferences.
Yep. It was single player games.
Really?
I didn't like, yeah.
Interesting. That's right, because you're not a big single player guy.
But there is actually one single player that I am a big fan of.
Okay.
It's on the PS2. It's called The Third Age, I believe it is. It's
okay.
It's an RPG, like old school turn based. I use my attack, I use my magic, blah blah blah. I'm just a really big fan of those games as well. But yeah, that's like the only single player games I can play.
So if a game straight up, going into it is single player, you're most likely not going to pick it up.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I've had people at Grapple be like, "Oh, let's all get this one game." And I'm like, "Oh, is there multiplayer? Is it online? Like, how does it work?" They're like, "Oh no, it's single player." I'm like, why would we all get this one game that's single player? And I'm just like, okay, no, I'm not getting that.
That's funny. That's very funny.
Yeah,
that's very funny. Now, I do want to make it clear, we're not designers, nor have we really had any conversations with designers that are going to back up anything that we say.
Yeah.
Everything that we're saying is from our standpoint and from our opinion. So I want to make that clear because I have points here that, again, it's from our standpoint. Now, I think we're correct. We're going to be correct in things that we say, but this is not coming from the standpoint of, we've talked to designers and like we know we know what they're thinking. We don't.
Okay? Now that I'm thinking about it, is there anyone's opinion that they think is wrong?
Well, maybe not wrong, but I know like there's plenty of times to where I'm very open and say, look, this is my opinion and I could be wrong, but this is kind of how I think it is.
Okay.
So I've thought about some things that way before. But I've also thought about certain other things to where here's my opinion. I have nothing to back it up, but this is really what I think the situation is.
This is what we've noticed.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So it's a fair question though.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to get into this here because I've got a couple things. So game designers make games for a multitude of different reasons, right? Now, the first thing I want to say, like, they could make it for literally any number of different reasons, okay? But honestly, the way you're going to find it out is talk to the designer. Like, talk to whoever made the game, and they're going to be the ones to tell you who they made the game for, why they made the game, or, like, if you have a question about it, they're going to be the ones who are going to be able to answer the question.
Yep.
Right? Too often, and honestly, like only a couple times is too often for this. I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, well, they made this game for X reason." What are you basing that off of?
Well, they could have said it in an interview. Who knows?
But that's never referenced.
Yeah.
Like it's just, well, I think that they've done okay, but based on what? Like if you're not happy with the game, you can't speculate of why you thought someone made a game, right? Now, obviously, when somebody makes a game, they want it to be sold, right? If a publisher's picked it up, they've most likely designed that game and want someone to purchase it or someone to enjoy the game from it. I don't know if I've ever heard of a designer designing a game specifically for them or someone they know. Now, that's not to say it doesn't happen. I guess it probably has happened before, but I've got no data to back that up. I don't know. But again, the way you're going to find that out is you talk to the designer. You talk to and honestly, sometimes not even a publisher. It's the designer. Like you have to look at how a game got made in the first place.
Yeah.
Like who had that initial idea? Okay.
Well, real quick, going off of that of people don't really design something specifically for themselves. There is a game in the making right now called Ashes of Creation, and the CEO, lead game developer as well, he during an interview he said, like, if no one plays this game, worst case scenario, I made my perfect game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like in that instance, it's like he's making the game for himself.
Yeah.
It sounds like, because he has a specific taste, and then therefore, going off of that, it's anyone else who's like him and has those tastes as well.
Which
so,
there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sure there are for sure. But what I was gonna say was like, so that reason, it could be as simple as somebody wanted to make a game that had Disney and Final Fantasy characters in it, like Kingdom Hearts. I honestly, I don't know why that game got made. I mean, I don't know why it got made. I'm not complaining because I love Kingdom Hearts, but like Disney crossed with Final Fantasy, heck yeah, that was sweet. Back in the day, that was legit, man. Back in the day, but I don't know why that game got made. Right? Again, if I wanted to find out, I'd have to talk to the designer, honestly, and like whoever got involved, because like there's sometimes there's in the making of a game comes down to I think it comes down to a couple different things. Again, this is just based off of what I know and what I'm kind of gathering right from industry. I think most of the time it comes down to there's a designer who has an idea for a game and they want to make this game. I don't think it happens normally from like the publisher standpoint where like the publisher has an idea of a game they want to make and then they have to talk to a designer to get them to design a game, or they have like a designer on staff and then they design it. I think it's normally the other way it goes, right? And so, then you have to get into the talking point of where does an idea come from? Like an idea can come from a number of different places. Like I think of Eric Lang, right? That guy has designed so many different games, and like he's designed so many different games too. Like it's funny. Like he did the Game of Thrones, the card game, right? That's a living card game. He also did the Dice Masters. I think he originally did that game. Okay. I believe so, but he's also done Blood Rage. He's done a lot of different games, and some for Panda. I believe he was on staff. Oh, Simon. He was on staff for Simon for a little bit. I'm not quite sure how long exactly. I'd have to look into that to be specific. But the games that he's designed are so many different types of games. I mean, we've played Dice Masters, and Dice Masters is fun. That's a really interesting take on card games crossed with dice games. It's very, very cool. So, we'd have to talk to him and say, okay, why did you design each and every one of these? Where did those ideas come from? Who did you make them for? Right? Because when you're designing something, when you're making a product, there's a reason you're making it, right? And you're also making it with someone in mind. Like you're making the game for a specific for a specific group of people or a specific interest, like a specific interest of a certain group of people as well.
Mhm.
So this leads me into the next point of, the designers make their games for a specific reason and for a specific audience. Okay, I think of the movie. Have you ever seen the movie The Patriot?
Very little.
So Patriot
Clips it here and there.
Patriot is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love it. It's set during the Revolutionary War time period of America, the United States. It's not a war movie. It's not. It is set during the Revolutionary War, and it's heavily influenced by that time period. But it is not a war movie. It is, and I was thinking about this the other day. It is a movie about a father doing everything that he can to keep his family safe and to not lose his sons to a war.
Okay.
He failed at losing 2 sons. Like, spoiler alert. I mean, this movie's old.
It's been on 30 years or something?
Not that long. No. I came out when I was in high school.
Okay.
So not that long. Yeah, so it is really about a father doing everything that he can to save his family. It is a fantastic story about a father doing everything that he can, and yes, in the middle of a war, and participating in the war. But it's more so a story about that than it is a story about America during the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
So, I mean, it tells a great story. The setting is great. There's so many reasons why I love that movie. But there's a point in that movie where the father was asking his son if he remembered how to shoot. And he's like, "Remember what I taught you?" He's like, "What did I teach you? Aim small, miss small." So, what he's essentially talking about is, if you're aiming, you want to aim at the smallest point possible, right? Because if you aim at, let's say, a dime, okay, your dime is on a large target, okay. If you aim specifically for that dime, you'll be very close to that dime, right? But if you aim at the entire target, who knows where you're gonna hit?
Oh,
right. So that is applicable in honestly any sport to where you're aiming something. You're aiming a bow and arrow or anything. If you're trying to aim anything, you want to aim at the smallest target as you possibly can. If you have a large target, you want to minimize that target as best as you can. That's why if you look on any target, you've got the bullseye, how it's that small red center. Yeah. That's what you really want to focus on. So, I mean, let's apply that to designing a game, right? If you want to sell if you're designing something just to sell as many copies as you possibly can, you're going to sell very little, I think, right? Because there's nothing holding that game together, right? When you design it for a specific interest, right? Then you know what kind of game you're trying to design, right? If you just go, oh, well, I want this in it, then I want this in it. I want a party element in it, so we're going to throw this into it. Oh, we need dice involved. Okay, now let's get some cards into it. You're going to have a smorgasbord of nothingness.
Yeah, I think I'm busy that day.
Yeah,
it's going to be rough.
Exactly, right?
Cards, dice, party-sized groups, a board, moving little meeples around.
Oh, there's also a DVD that you have to put in.
It's a phone app, Dan. It's a phone app, okay?
It has that too, okay?
The DVD gives you a QR code.
That's all the DVDs there for, because we need to service the older generation too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And it also comes with a flip phone.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to sell very many copies of that. So, but before we continue that, If you're into the video game space, there's a game that came out relatively recently called Elden Ring. Essentially, it is a Dark Souls RPG. If you're not familiar, Dark Souls was a game series to where the main selling point to that game was it's extremely hard and you died all the time.
Yep.
It appealed to a very specific subset of the gaming community and was insanely popular. I think the biggest reason it was insanely popular was gamers of a lot of video gamers really wanted a very difficult challenge. Dark Souls provided that challenge.
Yep.
So what the designers, it's from Software. So what developers did was they took that idea of Dark Souls and then turned it into an open world RPG game. Okay. Very different. It was a different style or take on the Dark Souls formula, but they just applied it in that type of setting. Correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I have not played it. I never played Dark Souls. Actually, I take that back. I played Demon Souls for a little bit, not long at all. That was the first one of the series that came out. I think I have them all in my Steam library.
This new one seems interesting to me because I don't know in the other ones if you're able to be like a caster, but this new one you're able to be a caster. So I'm like, yeah, sign me up for that one.
I don't know. I think the original Dark Souls games were all about physical damage, and like there wasn't much casting of spells. I don't think so. Again, if you know, correct us if we're wrong, because we're not totally sure. Okay, so like going into it, like if you knew Dark Souls, if you knew From Software, then you probably knew what kind of game that was. Like for me, if I see From Software, the developer, I immediately know what kind of game it's going to be. It's not that that's not for me, but I've just never really tried it to see if it's something I enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I see From Software, I immediately know what kind of game that's going to be. So there was a recent video that I saw because of another YouTuber's reply to this video. It was like a whole kind of controversy type thing, which I honestly don't really want to get into. But I do want to mention this guy's take, okay, his opinion. Okay. So this guy, and it's funny, the guy who did this video, he was a TV reviewer. He never does anything about video games, but he decided to do a video on Elden Ring. I'm like, okay. All right, cool.
He's already not in that genre.
Yeah, right. He's already not in his target audience, right? Right. So he basically does a video talking all about Elden Ring. And what his opinion was, what he said was he was not happy with the game, right? Because he didn't enjoy it, right? And so what he said was Elden Ring should have been made, or he either said that or he said was made. One of the two. Elden Ring was made for everybody. No, it wasn't. It was one of the worst takes I'd ever heard. Now, fully granting, yes, it's an opinion, and it's just that, it's an opinion. But no, you're wrong. Games, specifically, like again, in application, in context, Elden Ring was not made for everyone. Elden Ring was made for a specific group of people. And you know what? I won't even say group, but I'll say interest, right?
Yeah.
Elden Ring was made specifically for people within the video game community who are looking for an extreme challenge on the open world RPG.
Yep.
Period. That's exactly who it was made for. It was not made for every single video game player. It wasn't. Like, that boggles my mind. Like, how can you, I don't understand how you can arrive at an opinion like that. Because I mean, also just from the standpoint alone of acknowledging you like some things and you don't like other things, right? If you like some things and you don't like other things, wouldn't you want those things that you do like, the people who make those games, wouldn't you like them to make more of the things that you do like and less of the things you don't like? All right. Again,
You would think so.
yeah, like acknowledging, is that selfish? Sure, it's selfish, but you want more stuff for you to play. You wouldn't necessarily want something for someone else to play, right? again, being selfish, sure, yes, well, let's acknowledge that, sure.
Especially if it's a drastic change from the developer that you know and expect things from.
Yes, correct.
It's like, oh, we go from this really hardcore game, and then it's like, oh, well, you guys have made like a sequel to your Demon Souls and Dark Souls, but it's now super easy and anyone's playing it. And now there's even other stuff added to it that's like, you know, adding the whole caster thing as well. I'm sure that was actually different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because
right.
What it was 3 Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, Demon Souls and Dark Souls 2 and then Dark Souls 3, I think.
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that's it. And it was all pretty much big weapons or swords, axes, whatever you want to call it. And then they go into the next one, adding casters as well, which is huge for me because I really like being a caster, and that has drawn my attention to the game. But it doesn't change the fact that, all right, all those other people can still do exactly what it was they could do from the previous ones. And then if they want to branch out and do a little bit of magic, okay, whatever.
All right, so you had Demon Souls in 2009, Dark Souls in... Yeah, so Dark Souls was a sequel to Demon Souls, and that was in 2011. Dark Souls 2 was in 2014. Dark Souls 3 was in 2016.
Okay. So now they're on the
fifth. And then they had Dark Souls remastered, and then they remastered Demon Souls.
Okay.
So yeah.
So pretty much the 5th of its kind.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And then, but rather than them making smaller changes, what if they're now just like throwing in random puzzles of like little blocks and cubes, and now you got to get some colors all together in it, and then it's like, oh, but why?
Yeah, I mean, when you try and do too many things in a game, it waters it down, and it literally zaps the fun out of it. It zaps the fun, the enjoyment, the difficulty. Like if you're trying to make something that's hard, why would you put stuff that's easy into it?
Yeah.
Like your goal is trying to make the most difficult game that's ever been made before. Like the whole thing with the Dark Souls games was how many times can you die, right? And again, like the whole Dark Souls thing, that's a totally different topic for another day, right? Because that goes into the challenge, right?
Yep.
If you beat something that's easy, like, was it worth it? Like what did you legitimately accomplish, right? And so that was part of the reason that they made those games, was they wanted to give players a challenge because, you know, they thought everything was too easy, right? So whoever made that video, no, Elden Ring was not made for you. It was not made for everybody, but that's okay. Like we have to get away from the mindset of, okay, I don't like this game, therefore it sucks. Like, no, like just no. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. That's it. Now it's a totally different discussion. Like we're having a different discussion if the developer or designer or publisher, whoever, has come out publicly beforehand and said, we're making a game for this subset of the gaming community, and here is what we hope to accomplish with the game. And then it doesn't live up to those expectations. Okay, then I think if you're criticizing the game because it didn't live up to it, then okay, yeah, that's a completely different discussion that we're having.
Yeah.
And that's happened plenty of times before as well. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3, like the build up to that game was crazy. I mean, I had been waiting for that game for what, 14 years? I waited for that game for forever. I enjoyed it, but it was not worth the wait that I put in for that game. Let's just say that.
Yeah, you're telling me.
But it was not. It was a lot easier than 2. That game did not live up to the anticipation. So again, those are different conversations that we're having, right? But just because you didn't like something, then maybe the game really wasn't made for the type of player that you are. And you know what? Like, I think that's a better way of phrasing it and thinking about it, of instead of saying or thinking about maybe the game wasn't made for me or made for you, think about it from the standpoint of maybe it wasn't made for the type of player that you are.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how I had to think about Villainous, right? Because Villainous is a casual game. Sorry, it's a casual game. Straight up is. You agree or would you disagree?
100%.
And that's okay. Okay. This is going to lead us into the next point I want to talk about here. But Villainous is straight up a casual game. Like,
say it one more time for the people in the back, Dan.
Disney Villainous is a casual game. Okay. Does not mean you can't play it competitively. Now, let's actually, like, what do I mean when I say casual? Okay. Obviously, there's a winner and a loser, right? Mm-hmm. In most games, you have a winner, someone who's going to win, and someone who's going to lose, okay? Well, Dan, if there's a winner, then automatically that means it's competitive. No, that's not what I mean, okay? That is not what I mean, okay? When I say, like, a game is competitive or it's casual, what I mean is it was designed with competitive play in mind, okay? It is very thought out and very thorough, and this is nothing to say with how strategic the game is. Okay, mm-hmm. The game, it still can be a very strategic game, but there also could be a component of we've never designed this game with competitive play in mind. This game was straight up meant to just be played at your kitchen table in a very casual format and really not taken further from there. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean when I say casual. Now, if I say a game was designed to be competitive, okay, then competitive play was thought about beforehand, right? There was organized play in mind. Mm-hmm. They have rules set up to where, okay, here's what happens in X situation, okay? It's a complete different mindset when you have something that's casual and competitive. Take Magic the Gathering, for instance. Jim, do you know how many pages the Magic the Gathering rule book is?
No clue.
Pages.
No idea.
So it's very interesting, right? As I'm actually looking this up. Let's just go rules. Yeah, so let's see.
But I do think there's also like over 900 rulings. I don't know the exact number, but I'm fairly certain over 900.
So Magic the Gathering comprehensive rules. So the one I'm looking at, they're effective of April 17th, 2020, 242 pages. 242 pages. Now, I will say this is a game, again, this game has been around for a very long time, almost 30 years. It's 28 years, I think now. Who's been around for a very, very, very long time. Obviously, they've had a lot of time. They've had a lot of time to get this game where they want it. Okay, I will grant you that. Okay, however, 242 pages. I mean, they have their rulings, right? It's like subsection, 103.5.2.1a. Yep. It's insane, the level of detail, because Magic is an extremely detailed game, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, I think someone tried designing an algorithm that could play the game. Like, it's not even possible. Or it's something to where, like, if you've ever played Magic Arena and you play against a bot, it's the dumbest bot ever. There's so many things. There's so many lines that you have a computer has a very difficult time thinking about. So it's crazy, right? And then you get to Villainous. Like, how many pages is the rule book? It's 5. It's like barely any, right? And again, like, that's okay. Like, that's not to say Villainous is bad, Magic's better. No, I'm not saying that. But clearly very different games, okay? I'm gonna say it again. Villainous is not competitive. It's casual. It's straight up a casual game. It is. Now, I'm still continually amazed how popular the game is. Now, honestly, this goes back to the whole IP thing, right? Yeah. It's Disney. You slap Disney in anything, you're going to have so many fans right away. And so that, from that standpoint, I guess I'm not surprised, right? That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense as to why it's very popular, right? Okay, so depending on what the game is, right? If it's a casual game, if it's a competitive game, like fans turn games into what they want. Okay. In the case of Villainous, right? You have a game that was designed to be casual, designed for families in mind. Again, go back to that conversation we had with Sam, right? We had this exact conversation, right? The whole concept and the thought behind that game was for the players to really feel like they're stepping into the shoes of these villains, and they're trying to relive these Disney stories that they heard when they were kids. I've told this story, I'm going to tell it again. First time I played the game, I was Jafar. I loved Aladdin when I was a kid. Love Aladdin, right? I felt like I'm playing through that movie trying to capture the lamp and get the genie so I can take over Agrabah.
Yeah.
It was so cool. I remember that feeling. And that feeling is really what the designers had in mind when they designed the game. They wanted to get families around a table and just enjoy, have a Disney experience together, essentially, right? That is what they wanted when they designed the game. Okay. Now, game goes on the market. Now you have the competitive people pick up this game, Magic players, right? With what we're talking about, right? You have Magic players pick it up. Hey, this is a card game. Very interesting. I have a Magic background. Okay, let's play. Oh man, this is kind of cool. I can see the strategy. Again, there's cards. Ooh, sign me up. Again, this was me, right? This was me when I first played. I'm like, oh man, this is really cool. Remember looking at the cards. Thought the cards were very, very cool. They're very neat, very detailed. Yeah. I thought the design and the artwork was phenomenal, right? Very, very cool. And so you get those people playing the game and asking all these questions. How does this interaction work? How do these two cards interact? What happens when X happens? Okay, all right, well, now we've got all these different characters. Okay, all right, let's get a tournament going. We're going to have weekly events with prizes, yada, yada, yada. That's not what the designers had in mind when they initially designed it, okay? But you have what the designers thought about beforehand, and then you have what customers and fans, I won't even say want, but
what they turn it
into, right? They can be two completely different things. I think when a game really succeeds is when you have the designed game and then what the fans are doing with the game, and it's one and the same, right? I think that's when a game really, really, really shines. That's not to say that's the only thing that can happen. You can have what the designers thought about beforehand, and then you have what's been turned into by the community over here. And like that can still work. That can still function. I mean, clearly, because it happens in so many different games, right? So like Villainous is a perfect example of something that was designed casual, and then you have people who turn it into competitive, right? And then you have the opposite too. You have something that is designed competitive, but then gets played in a casual situation, a la EDH Commander for Magic the Gathering.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I am sure there's plenty of other examples too. Like honestly, any game that you play at your kitchen table, like Pokemon, for instance, right? Pokemon has a very, very competitive scene as well, right? But that's also, again, something that can just be played straight up at your kitchen table, right? So you've got the competitive scene, and then you have your kitchen table casual scene as well. So it's not that we're not saying that these games can only be enjoyed by the way that they were initially designed. Definitely not suggesting that at all. Because I do it all the time. I do that stuff all the time, right?
Recently, Pokemon came out with like a board game. We're gonna put that in quotes.
Oh, they get people.
Yeah, I think it was called Battle Academy, something along those lines. To where it was like they even actually gave you a board which is supposed to be more like a play mat, but for both players. And it's pretty much made out of the same material as normal board games.
Yeah.
They give you little pieces as well to be keeping track of life and stuff. And I'm just like, wow, they have taken a card game, turned it into a board game.
Yep. But it's still a card game,
it's
basically.
Still a card. It's still Pokemon.
Yeah, it's still Pokemon
the exact
TCG.
same thing.
Yeah.
But they just have now turned it into this, and that draws people who are really just also into board games, getting them into Pokemon.
Yeah, trying to target a different audience with this specific product.
Yep.
It's the same thing with Magic, with what Magic was doing, Wizards of the Coast, with their they've got so many different products now, but there is a certain product, I think it's called like Game Night or something.
Yeah.
It was like in a hexagon type thing where they give you certain cards that trying to get a very casual board gamey type people into.
It was a pentagon, but yes.
Yes, it was.
One for every color.
Yeah.
One,
oh, there.
one
Yeah,
for
that
every
makes sense.
color.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yep. So, because I remember.
And that was super cool.
Yes.
Because then it would just be like, oh, we got 4 people. All right, everyone pick a color.
Yes. Yep. That's right. Because you had those mono.
Yeah.
That's right. The monocolor decks. Yeah. Yep. Because I remember watching a Command Zone video where they played that product. That was kind of cool.
They played it on game nights.
They did.
They played the game night on.
I don't know. I don't know what the product was called.
Yeah, I think it was. Game
I think
night.
it was too. I think it was.
Yeah. But not with the K. It was just night.
No. Yeah.
So.
Yes. So we talk about these casual games being turned competitive and vice versa. Ultimately, I think it's a good thing because honestly, the more people that are playing the game that you love, the better for everybody involved. The better for you. The better for the game. The better for the publisher, the designer. Getting more fans ultimately is a good thing because then you have more people clamoring for more stuff for the game that they love.
Yep.
So this might seem like it's like a Debbie Downer type conversation. It's not. It's really, really not. Because at the end of the day, I want to help people who are like myself be less upset and sad when they don't find enjoyment in the game that they want to find enjoyment on. Yeah. Because honestly, like when you sit down at a game, you want to have fun, right? You never are searching out to play a game and then to not have fun in that game. So it feels bad when you sit down and you play a game and you don't have fun. That Villainous video, I did not have fun in that game. Now, I enjoyed the process. Like I enjoyed learning, but at the end of the day, I just didn't have a good time.
Now I'm thinking about that game. I'm like, oh my god. Hell, yeah, that
it was just not enjoyable. Now, I also attribute some of that to myself, not knowing exactly what to do in the situation. I started off playing a character like I was playing Lotso, because I played Syndrome. I started off playing like Lotso to where I needed to get heroes on the board so I could vanquish them. No, those cards that took heroes and put them on the board were specifically in the deck to place heroes if you wanted to move the remote, so then you could take the remote and then do your win condition. That's not how I played them initially. So my mind was not where it needed to be. It was in Lotso mode. I needed it to be in Syndrome mode, essentially. So I fully acknowledge that. Doesn't make it any better.
The best part about that episode was when it was over.
But honestly, you want to know the best part is so many people agreed with us.
Yeah, I know.
That is what comments. That's what surprised me. I'm like, all right, then we're not crazy.
I was waiting for someone to be like, well, this is what you're supposed to do at this moment. And I'm like, wow, literally everyone was like, yeah, we had the same thing happen. We hate these characters.
I'm like, all right. Then I'm glad we're not the only ones who had that experience. So, it felt good. It felt better. It felt better.
We were validated.
There we go. That's it. So that's really it. I mean, it's helped. It does help. Like, it helps me understand and realize, hey, maybe this game just wasn't designed for me. And then if that's the case, I'll probably stop playing that game and then play something else that I will enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. Because like at the end of the day, I want to play stuff that I enjoy and I have fun with. I don't want to play something I don't like and I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
So like maybe hopefully that helps somebody else. Just think about if you play something and then you just don't enjoy it. I mean, maybe it wasn't designed for you, because then think critically. Well, why did you not enjoy that? Okay. Because it helps you learn yourself a little bit better. And then it also take that information that you've learned and then now apply that. Okay, here's who designed it. Okay, here's who published it. And like who worked on the game helps you better to know them, and then helps you better to know you. Like if you play Stonemaier game, for instance, like let's say you play Scythe or whatever, and then you're like, oh man, I love that game so much. Then you see Tapestry. If you've already played Scythe, okay, then you know, okay, here is, what did I say, Tapestry? All right, you see Stonemaier games. All right, I've already played all their Stonemaier games. Love them. Look at who designed it. Jamie Stegmaier. Actually, I don't know. I'm pretty sure he designed Tapestry. I know he designed Scythe. I'm pretty sure he designed Tapestry. But anyway, you look at all that information and you're like, okay, I already liked his games before. And then you're like, all right, I'll probably pick this up because I've already got other stuff that I've enjoyed by those people as well. So again, it's like it's continually learning about yourself and then honestly the community, right? Yeah. The designers and the people in the community. So
it's also a difference of not so much like a completely different game of, what your interests are in it. It could also be a thing of, well, I just didn't like playing that one character. I didn't like playing that one hero. I didn't like playing this play style of this one specific person.
Yeah, true.
And then we go over here and play a different one. It's like I've played some rough characters in Villainous, and I'm like, I am not a fan of these specific ones. Yes. But then I'm like, you put me on Queen of Hearts. I love Queen of Hearts. Yeah. Right? Because it just also, I mean, I get to turn cards sideways, right?
Like that's a good point about a game like Villainous, to where there's so many different ways to play that game. So like that's an advantage of games like Villainous, where you have, I mean, what is it, 21 characters? There's 21 different villains now that you can play. So there's a lot of different characters that you can play. Like me personally, I kind of want to try Syndrome again just to see if I get to a point to where I know how to play him.
You're brave.
And then enjoy him. Like, I want to get to the point of, okay, if this is how he's played correctly and like it still does nothing, okay, then no, I'm done. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
It was the same thing when we were playing Marvel Villainous. Yeah. I loved playing Ultron, but I also know it's terrible diverse, because I think I'm decent at playing Ultron.
Yeah, and like that's another character to where I want to play him a little bit more just to see if it was just it was a one-time thing, or if it was just, he's really busted.
He's really strong. He seems to be able to manipulate the Fate deck. Seems very powerful.
Yes, especially in that game. Yeah. So there's one other thing I did want to mention here. So okay, if you make a lot of house rules for a game, that's probably a good indication you're not playing the game the way it was intended. So in that video, in the comments for that last Villainous video, I had a lot of comments say, yeah, we have a house rule. Like, that's cool. Like, because that's good. Like, if you have a house rule, that means, to me, it means here's something you want to enjoy it, but you had to implement this other additional rule to make it more fair or enjoyable or whatever it is for you to be able to play it. Like, it's great. But if you have to make all those rules, you're probably not playing it the way it was designed or intended to be played.
Or it could also be a thing of more of like, rather than a house rule, a house ruling for cards.
Same thing. Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then at that point, we've talked about this. Unless you go online and find something that specifically tells you how this interaction works, sometimes you just don't know, and you have to make the call on the spot.
Right. And to me, like, because Villainous,
and then how do you play that as intended?
Villainous is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
It is so open-ended And again, in that conversation with Sam, it was like, well, I mean, the way it goes is, it's just, well, what do you think? Like, if the answer is, what do you think? Then probably a good indicator this is not supposed to be played at any competitive level. Really not.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a universal rule of this is how this thing works, how is anybody supposed to play it on any sort of competitive level? You can't. You can't do it unless you have a rule. Like, okay, here are the competitive rules for this game. Okay, here's a tournament, and here are the rules we're going to go by. There is no, here's what I think.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works in competition. It's not. You have to have a very strict set of rules.
That's why there's judges, refs,
Correct.
Making sure every single thing is going according to plan.
It's consistent.
Yep.
You have to be consistent across the board.
But if you slip that ref a 20, you might get away with some stuff.
20? Dude, you might get a side eye from that ref being like, for real, dude?
All right, it depends. Like a little league game, all right, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Like your 6-year-old son there, he'll probably let some stuff slide. Yeah. T-ball.
T-ball. Nope, he needs that was not a foul, sir. Sit down. That's good.
He was not out. That was a clear save.
Just imagine the parents as my son did T-ball last year.
Yeah.
I can imagine because there were no parents that were like this, but what are you talking about? It's like, dude, it's freaking T-ball, man. Well, it's T-ball. Welcome to the game where the runs don't matter, the points are made up, and the rules don't matter, whatever it is.
Yeah. The rules are made up and the points don't matter.
There we go. That's what it was. There we go. So, all right. I think that's all I got. Do you have anything else for this? Because I think we pretty much hit on everything we kind of wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Oh, I guess one other thing to go into. Disney Villainous is a casual game. Not competitive.
I concur.
That's it. That's all.
That's all we got. Okay, so now we're talking about card of the week.
Yay!
Card of the week. Card of the week. Card of the week. All right, cool. All right, Jim.
Were you just singing Out of the Box?
Is that what it was?
That's what that was.
That is what it was.
Yeah,
yep. I don't know why I have that theme stuck in my head.
I used to love that show.
It's weird. All right, so this week's card of the week, we're doing our first Yu-Gi-Oh card. Woo. First Yu-Gi-Oh card. So I'm just going to talk and then I'm going to get out of the way because I know literally zero things. Zero things.
You could ask questions.
I'll ask some questions. I know zero things about this. So today's card of the week number 4 is Pot of Greed.
Dan, do you know what Pot of Greed does? It allows you to draw 2 cards.
When I saw the card, I'm like, wait, that's it? That's all this card does?
That's all it does. Dan's like, why are we picking this card? Because it's like the most broken card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh ever created.
Which is crazy to me.
It's also not true, but it's an amazing card.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, all it does is draw 2 cards.
Literally, my first reaction when I looked it up, I pull it up, and it just says on it, draw 2 cards. I'm like, wait, that's it? Really?
That's it?
I was expecting like an entire text box full of stuff. Nope. Just draw 2 cards. Now, I do know drawing cards is the most powerful thing you can do inside card games, is draw cards. So I know that. So drawing 2 cards is doubly better than drawing 1 card, right? So, I mean, drawing 2 cards, normally in Magic, it's like you pay 4 to draw 2 cards. So if you're paying 4 to draw 2, like that's kind of the resource I'm looking at. So I also know that in Yu-Gi-Oh, playing a card is essentially free. There's really no resource you have to pay.
Yeah, if there is a cost, it would be like discard another card, or it would say pay life, or it would say like get rid of something on the board, pretty much.
Okay.
That's pretty much the cost. It's not like, oh, I have to tap 4 mana in order to draw 2 cards.
Right.
So for Pot of Greed, The last format you could play this card legally inside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was GOAT format, which was all the way back in 2005. This card got banned in October of 2005. And before that, it was actually only played as a 1. You could only play 1 copy of it in the entire deck.
And how big are Yu-Gi-Oh decks again?
40 cards.
Oh, so 40 cards.
40 to 60.
Okay.
40 to 60. And so
so there's a max.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They they introduced a max later on. It used to be like not really a max, but then
Okay.
So really what this card does is makes your deck 37 cards instantly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And then if there was any possible chance you were able to play 3, we're talking 31 cards in the deck.
So that's a quarter of your deck essentially.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So just from this one card, you're cutting off like a lot of percentage of deck thinning for your deck. And so later on, this card has been banned since October 2005. Okay.
Like straight up banned, right?
It's just banned.
Wow.
In all competitive play. And so the only way you can actually play this now is they just recently came out with a new format called Time Wizard format.
Okay.
It's named after another one of their cards called Time Wizard.
Okay.
And what it does is the people who are hosting the tournament for this format, they can set a specific ban list. So if they ever make it to where it's October 2005, you are now able, or slightly before then, so August 2005 or September, you are now able to play Pot of Greed at 1. And that's the only time legally in competitive play.
Oh, so for the Time Wizard format, they can set a date and say, we're looking at the ban list from this specific date.
Yep.
Understood.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay.
Exactly. So with GOAT format has been a thing for a few years now.
Yeah.
Probably like 5, 6, 7 years. And so people still play this card inside of that format. And now they came out with Time Wizard. People are a lot more excited about that format as well.
Yeah.
But the thing about Pot of Greed is, sure, it's only a +1, right? Because it replaces itself and then gives you a whole nother card on top of it. But it gives you cards you normally weren't going to be able to find as well.
That turn.
Yeah. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a lot of draw cards, but they kind of don't really work together necessarily.
Okay.
Pot of Greed is the only one that really works with all of them because there's nothing else you got to worry about. So Pot of Duality made it to where you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and take 1, but you can't special summon at all that entire turn. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, that is huge.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's other ones, Pot of Desires. You exile the top 10 cards of your deck. So instantly, 25% of your deck is face down exile. You can't interact with them at all. And then draw 2 cards. So, and people were playing that at 3.
That's crazy.
There's another recent one. I forget the name exactly. But so your extra deck in Yu-Gi-Oh consists of very strong cards, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, those are the cards you bring out in order to win the game. You have 15 max, and they all tend to be very good. A new card, you can get rid of 3 or 6 of them randomly from your extra deck, random. And then if you got rid of 3 or 6, you draw 1 card for 3, 2 cards for 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're throwing a heavy cost on drawing cards in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
But then we can also say that Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of value cards as well, rather than just drawing cards like you want to do in Magic.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh's like, I play this 1 card. It allows me to now special summon any specific one from the deck. So it could be like, I played a Shadal monster. It now allows me to special summon another Shadal. When these now go to the graveyard, they now get their effect to allow me to special summon another one from the graveyard.
Yeah.
I can now special summon from the extra deck with those 2 cards that I just put into the graveyard to also get their effects to now give me another card effect. So it's not so much like cards in hand advantage, but cards overall out on the field, also in the graveyard, because graveyards really matter along with in the hand. So Pot of Greed is one of the very few cards like itself.
Yeah.
And it's broken. It's never coming off the ban list. And you guys out there keep dreaming, but yeah, it's not coming off the ban list.
I don't know very much anything about Yu-Gi-Oh. But so like I said, when I first saw that, I'm like, really?
Yeah. Dan's thing was like, that's all it does. Like, yep, she's a beauty, isn't she?
I'm like,
what?
I guess. Yeah.
What's the
card looks cool though.
Yeah. The alpha card in Magic that's 1 mana, draw 3.
Brainstorm? No, not Brainstorm.
No. It's just 1 mana, draw 3 cards. I forget the name of it, but that card is at 1 inside of not Legacy. Vintage. It's at 1 in Vintage. It's banned in every other format pretty much. And
I'm looking it up to see
and
if
that
I can find
instantly has a cost, right? So when we're starting to talk
Ancestral
about
Recall.
Ancestral Recall, there it is.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, it's
oh yeah. That you said that is that banned?
I believe it's at 1 in Vintage.
So restricted.
Yeah. Because I don't think there's any banned cards in Vintage.
I don't think so. I think you're right.
Probably like the really crazy ones like Charizard.
Yeah.
To play a sub game.
Oh yeah. Right.
Yeah, that one's banned in like every single format.
In every format, yeah. So okay. Yeah, it's a cool looking card, but again, for me not knowing much about Yu-Gi-Oh, that's very interesting. Like I learned quite a lot when Jim was talking about Pot of Greed. I was like, very interesting. So again, that also for me brings me to what I enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh. You know what I mean? Like,
Dan, you're a combo player. You'd like Yu-Gi-Oh.
That's true. Totally true. Absolutely.
You'd be like, what do you mean I don't got to pay costs? I can just go off.
That's why I love Pokemon. It's like the deck I'm playing in Pokemon. The deck I'm playing in Pokemon is just like, I do this, then I do this. All right, let me find this, get that out. All right, so bench. Let me get this, bench. Okay, turn 1, I got a full bench. All right, kill, you're dead.
Well, you went first. You don't get to attack. Go to my turn.
No. That's when I go second because you never choose to go first.
Yeah, no, you don't.
I don't understand why people are choosing to go first. I don't get it. I'm playing Pokemon. Like I play Pokemon TCG online, and like I'm like, all right, I lose the flip. Okay, I guess I'm gonna go first. And then they're like, all right, opponent goes first. I'm like, what? I'm playing standard. Okay, so I'm playing Mew Genesect, which if you play Pokemon, yes, you know what deck I'm talking about. And if my opponent has 1 active Pokemon and I go second, I'm like, dude, I can kill you.
You're dead.
I'm like, I can kill you if I draw 1 Pokemon and then I draw into Battle VIP Pass.
Yep.
Dude, I'm gonna have a full bench.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I enjoy Pokemon. So I'm interested. It's
a crazy game.
Very interested to check out Yu-Gi-Oh. So, all right, that's all we got for you today. That is episode 45. So thanks everybody for being here again. If you could drop us a like, subscribe, leave us a review if you are listening to us on any of the podcasting platforms, we'd greatly appreciate it. And with that, Jim, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram at Jim Morgan HNH.
All right, you can find me on Instagram at Daniel.g.campbell and Twitter at _GGCampbell. And then go to our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com. You can find all of our links to our social platforms, YouTube's, pretty much everything there. The website is still a work in progress. It's coming along, but it is functioning. We post our podcast there, post pretty much everything we can there at the moment. Still trying to work out some design things that we want to do with it, but it is at least live. So
we also started live streaming.
We did.
as well.
Speaking of, we are potentially going to be doing another one this coming Saturday. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Maybe we'll see. Want to do another test stream. Again, we still got a little bit of testing I want to do just to kind of make sure stuff is functioning. So want to do one. Hopefully Saturday. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. So So with that, thanks everybody for being here, and we'll catch you in the next episode. See you, buddy.
Take care.